Sup, nerds? I'm Aaron.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Tom.
We're taking a look at Charterstone, and we're giving you our thoughts on the base game. No spoilers.
The base game.
The base game. Which is...
Like, there aren't any expansion. What do you mean? So as you saw in the title, we're going to do our best to be spoiler-free in this review. And I think kind of the benchmark we're going to use is, like, if Rodney Smith talks about it in his How to Play video, we'll, say that that's fair game. Yeah. But in terms of how things upgrade and progress from there, we'll do a whole nother video where we can really discuss those in detail.
So if you haven't really been following board gaming news, then you might not know that Charterstone is a worker placement legacy game. So you're placing your workers and taking all these actions and such, but the game is evolving and you're unlocking things and you're putting stickers on the board and it's just changing it, and it's no game is going to be the same as any other game. Like, it's really unique and awesome.
And if you want to see some more about that, we did an interview with the designer Jay Staggs at Gen Con, and the guy who interviewed him is a pretty cool dude.
It was actually more about how he invented the fidget spinner, and then he plugged the game in the end of the video.
Yeah.
Once you watch it, you'll understand.
Yeah, his nickname is the Stegosaurus.
The Stegmeyer?
Stegmeister. The Stegmeister. Oh, that's good.
Nice. So before we really dive into our thoughts on the game, I want to kind of give an overview of my thoughts before we saw the game at all. Because at first when I heard legacy worker placement, and then another big hook is the fact that when you're done, it's not one of the legacy games like Pandemic Legacy and the other ones where you finish it, you put it on the shelf, and you're like, well, done with that. Now what do we do? It actually, you get to have a unique game when it's done, and you can continue playing the game as much as you want. And I was kind of like, how's that going to work with worker placement? It seemed like an odd mechanic to me to fit with Legacy.
It seems like it would be really prone to imbalance.
Yeah, definitely.
I doubt that would be a super huge, that we were talking as we were playing, we were looking at some scenarios, and we were like, I guess it's theoretically possible for this, and this to kind of work out in this fashion, such that at the end it would be imbalanced. But I bet you, there's probably something we haven't seen yet.
Yeah, we're halfway through.
We're halfway through this. We're going to do our spoiler review, having done everything. A question that one of my other buddies had is, he knows that we're doing our campaign, and he has a copy, and he's like, oh, we should do a campaign with this group. And then he asked me, he goes, well, I don't really know how much I'm going to love the game. Is it possible to just do the first round or the first, game or whatever? And then for me to just say, because, I don't really like, now he doesn't like legacy games. He doesn't like Euro games. And the answer is yes, there are rules in there for you to add and delete players. But I think it's definitely incentivizes you to play with the same people. Mm-hmm. And really, I think it would be the best to play with 6 players, because you do kind of have to control the non-player area a little bit.
And there's the the AI players, basically, that you can play as if the empty seats were real players. And I've heard, we haven't used those yet, but I have heard people say that they got crushed by it.
Yeah, well, I mean, so there's a way to do it where those players are making decisions that the player ought to make, or there's a way where you do, again, not to spoil it, but do kind of a random thing.
Upgrading of their places.
Yeah.
You don't end up with just empty spots on the map. This corner, nothing happens. They do keep up with you. And I think that's important to know for when you're done with the game, you're going to play it as an independent game, is you're not going to have we only played this as a 4-player campaign, so now it's no longer a 6-player game when it's done. You can still play it with 6 players.
So when you start this game, it's very simple in the fact that you have 2 workers, and you're placing them on either the commons, which there's only 5 places to go there, this little place up in Cloudport, or the buildings that you've all started out building, which are just for your generic resources.
Mm-hmm. And then from there, you are getting, dudes that can help you out, and then building buildings and building crates, and from there you start expanding outwards. But the general mechanic, and actually what I do like is the rounds.
The progress?
Yeah, the progress, that's what it's called. Yeah, because it isn't really X number of rounds.
Yeah.
There are actions you can take that will further the progress token, and you don't have to take them, but eventually you kind of do.
Yeah, so it lets the players actually decide how long the game's going to take. If you guys want to rush it, and everybody's just rushing to do things, you can, but you can actually kind of, if everybody sits back, you kind of maximize your resources and your points kind of thing before it progresses. But I mean, some of the bigger point things that, the ones that you actually have to do, like the objectives or opening a crate or building a building, that's what progresses the token.
And there definitely, like, there is advantages and disadvantages to, like, bum rushing. Like, there's a point where you can't do big things anymore, and getting there first is not necessarily advantageous. When you're going into it, don't think, oh, I'm just going to go, and then advance the progress marker super fast. Like, again, there are advantages to that, but there are also disadvantages to that as well. Because you can get...
Actually, where it even lands as it progresses.
Yeah, that's a big thing. But I feel like if you go really fast, because the board changes as you play, so you may like get there super fast, and then something changes mid-game, and now you don't have access to it because you've already gotten to a point where you can't do anything else.
Well, it's not that you can't do anything. You do have the, what are they called? Infamy? Not infamy. No. Famous? Fame?
Influence?
Influence. Wow. I was way off. Those tokens are kind of like an odd resource that everybody does start off with, because a lot of the center locations, a lot of the big things require you to spend those, so that does limit you out. And when you spend all of yours, that's where you kind of trigger, for lack of a better term, trigger the end of the round. And at the start of your turn, that token's going to move one. So like we can even like kind of count it out where it's like, oh, so it's going to move one on my turn and then move one on yours. So you
only got a couple more rounds left.
Yeah, I mean, and again, a couple more, because somebody else can do some more stuff that gets rid of those tokens for them, and now they're making it go even faster. But it is that once that happens, you're kind of like, okay, I gotta.
The clock's ticking.
Yeah, the clock's ticking. Yeah,
and that moving, like, just it's going to move is a big deal. A progress token, I mean, because Aaron was saying that like sometimes when it lands on something, the player who's turned it in gets a bonus. And it, like, I feel especially early on in every single game, everyone's really like, all right, I'm ready to build a building, but when I build it, but you're ready to build a building too. And if I build it, it's going to move it to where on your turn, if you build your building, you get the advantage. Mm-hmm. So we're all just sitting here like, who's going to do it first? Who's going to do it first?
Yeah, and that is probably one of the most fun aspects of that track. I like that it's a communal track that we can all like see when somebody's going to trigger a again, more or less, because that aspect of you really feel the weight of, well, I want to do it now because there's reasons for me to do it sooner, but there's also reasons for me to not do it sooner. So it's like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah, and if you play your cards right, because like you're putting your workers out, and then one of your actions is to recall your workers, which I hate doing it, but you have to. If you can wait for them to call their workers, and you're like, aha, now I can do it, and you're not going to get the bonus. It's Tom. I don't want Tom to get the bonus. Aaron, you're fine. You can have it. Yes. Go for it. So again, jumping back to one of the things that we had talked about earlier, is that as the game kind of progresses and gets more complicated as it goes, I think that does make this a really good game to play with people who aren't like super well versed into the hobby. If you're trying to play with like a girlfriend or a spouse or someone or a boyfriend for you gamer girls out there.
Yeah, because it starts simple.
Yeah, if you don't have to, like Pandemic Legacy. I would say, let's play Pandemic a few times, or there's even a way they say you can play it as just regular Pandemic until you get the hang of the game. Where this one, I feel like, as it naturally progresses, it's honestly a good way to, like, introduce someone to worker placement and then take them to a more advanced game as it goes, because every Legacy game, every game you play adds something new. Well, every Legacy game but Seafall.
If I were to compare this to another worker placement game, though, I think the one it's most closely like is Euphoria. The other Stonemaier worker placement, well, Viticulture is worker placement too, but another Stonemaier worker placement game, because you start off with the two workers, where I think in Euphoria you could get up to 4, but you had a potential to lose them. The idea of just fewer workers and you don't block yourself. You have the bumping mechanic.
The bumping mechanic is awesome.
Yeah, reminded me of Euphoria a whole bunch, because it's not like you have,
you want to take the action that other people are going to take,
such that they can bump you off of it to keep you going.
Bump them off, they bump you off,
Because of the recall action, which is just terrible. You basically waste a turn recalling your workers. There is no, like, cleanup round where, okay, it's been 3, in Lords of Waterdeep, you play until everyone's played all their meeples, and then everyone takes them back and you start again. It's if you can keep bumping them, and you can actually, especially early in the game, have like a cycle where, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to bump myself. And I'm going to bump myself. And I'm going to bump myself. And then I'm going to go here and sell them. And I'm going to sell them. And I'm going to sell them. And like you can like have a cycle where you're just continually bumping yourself.
may not be the most efficient thing, but you can do it. And I even read in one of Stegmeier's blogs where he put like he specifically didn't want this to have rounds. He doesn't want this to feel like you only have X number of rounds. You want it to be felt more free and more that you control the length of the game, which you do with that track.
Our copy of Charterstone has all these sculpted resources, which I really like, because instead of just being like, okay, brown cube, red cube, yellow cube, like they're actually shaped like the resources that they're supposed to be, and the coins are nice. The dice isn't used very often yet.
So before we get into our final thoughts, a couple questions. I saw a couple people on Instagram were actually saying that they felt like the game was moving kind of slow and grinding, and even that like the story really wasn't progressing game to game. Without giving anything away, do you guys have any like comments on those remarks?
It has a little bit of a ramp, rightfully so, really, because you were saying like it's a good game to introduce people. Things build upon other things, so
And it's not supposed to be a dense story-driven game, I don't think. I feel like it's supposed to be like little clips of story in between each game to kind of give you this overall story. I feel like when we get to the end, there will probably be some reveals that will make the story feel more complete.
But I don't think you're not getting Charterstone to get a story-based game. Because I think at the end of the day, like it's a part of it, but it's not the main part.
It's like lore.
I mean, I do feel like in legacy games that can be something people are going for. Like I think Pandemic has a really like you have to read a big story every time, and you're reading stuff in this, and you're making decisions.
I didn't read it. And I only played through till May, I think.
Pandemic. I'm saying
Pandemic Legacy, and we never read any.
Oh, you never read? So when we finished season 1 and we're working on season 2. We read everything and the story progresses and it like the whole gameplay like, shifts as you're going. We're gonna spoil Pandemic, but that's not this video.
Things changed, but like there was like a reason why things changed and everything. That there was like a story. Oh well, this is this because that happened, and I'm like, I don't care. Let's just go.
Well, I feel like a lot of people do care, and
I know a lot of people care. What I'm saying is, the fact that I didn't listen to this story didn't change the rules for me, at least. Like I still got it and could do it.
I get that, and I'm saying for the people who did feel that way, I want to talk to them. I don't care how you felt.
I don't care about people like you.
I did want to address though that we haven't finished it, but there are parts of the game as you go where there are bigger jumps in story. There's definitely some games where there's like not zero story, but like it almost feels like just kind of like flavor text thrown there. And then there are some games where you get a much bigger like, oh, this is that, and then oh, because of that, this happened. And I feel like it is blossoming into a bigger story. We'll see how that goes.
Decisions have to be made for that to happen.
Exactly.
I think Charterstone is one of the cleanest worker placement games I've ever played. Like it's so smooth. The whole bump mechanic is just great because there's no rounds, so like the fact that you can just continuously like, okay, I'm gonna bump here, I'm gonna bump there. Hey, if I bump you, will you bump me? They're just like you can kind of like work with each other. There's just something about worker placements that I've liked, and this does it really well. Like there's places to exchange things. Go collect resources over there, collect them here. I don't know.
Don't say anymore.
I mean, you can exchange.
There are multiple places to collect resources. I don't think that's
obviously
like...
no.
Oh my God! Spoiler.
That was fine, but stop it there.
There's places where you can. I am super excited to keep playing this game, and I cannot wait to finish it and see what our completed game of Charterstone looks like. So that we have this unique worker placement game at the end.
I am also really interested in that, and we are going to talk about that in our spoiler review later. But so far, I don't understand why more people aren't playing this. I think this game should be like, first of all, it's definitely one of the best games of the year. It's probably one of the best legacy games I've ever played. I think that word is perfect. It's so clean. There's very little confusion to the mechanics because it starts simple and it builds upon itself and then builds upon that and then builds upon that. And it gives you alternate incentives because there are reasons why you want to win this game, reasons why maybe you don't, reasons why you want to do this, but also reasons why you don't want to do that. If you're the first one to do this, I guess that's good, but then again, that'll move this. Everything kind of does this, it all kind of works together. And upgrading things, I think, makes sense. Again, the whole balance issue that you could have, I really don't see it. I see a potential, maybe, again, for like a very specific scenario. Oh, I guess in theory this could happen and that could happen and that could happen. Then this person might be at an advantage. But I highly doubt that'll be a problem a lot. Like when we're sitting down to play it, again, I get that euphoria feel, but I'm just so kind of blown away by how simple it is, yet how much I have to think about my decisions, how there have been a couple surprises along the way so far that I did not see coming. And I'm kind of just blown away by how much fun I'm having playing Charterstone when at first I was looking at it and I was like, this will be a generic resource game. And it really kind of isn't. It's easy to like wrap your mind around it first, but at this stage in the game, it's pretty intense.
So I definitely think that worker placement games in general have kind of become my favorite mechanic in a game. I really haven't played a lot of worker placement games. Like there are definitely ones that I like more than others, but like all of them are good. Like I like worker placement games. So the idea of a worker placement legacy game, well, I had some reservations. I'm still really excited, and this is definitely living up to the hype, similar to Avatar. Contrary to Tom, I do still have some concerns about balancing. I feel like in the campaign, it's kind of working itself out because we're still developing things. So where I may have an off balance in one game, they see that, and in the next game, they do everything they can to counter it. I feel like once the board is set and done and you can't change anything, I am still a little bit hesitant about, like, there may be like, oh, well, this charter they win, 8 times out of 10 or 4 times out of 5, depending on how you want to look at that. But it may be nothing, but I do have some reservations. Like Tom said, this is definitely a legacy game I think that every gaming group should be playing. I feel like the games are going by quick enough where it's not like, oh, well, we're going to spend our whole game night playing one campaign of this. I mean, we took a leisurely day and went through 5 games, which if you can do that, that is the way to do this game. But we did 5 games back to back.
We like broke for lunch and stuff. We were real chill about it.
But I didn't get tired of it.
No.
Like, I could have done a 6th one if we had time.
Okay, I was like, you sure you want to go to less? Like, we could play one more?
Yeah, which there aren't many games that I could play 5 games back to back and be like, let's go again. Other than like, Coup, maybe?
Right. Like, not a lot of this length.
Yeah, and the legacy definitely helps that. But again, it's the legacy game that I feel like is just so crisp and clean. And Jamie definitely has like perfected so many things that even like in the grinding, there's so much competition and cutthroatness and just fun with it that it all makes for a great time.
And if any of that sounds interesting to you, we're going to put a purchase link to this game in the description box down below.
Hey, and while you're still down there, don't forget to subscribe so you'll never be bored.
Guns, finger guns.
If you don't really follow board gaming news and you haven't heard of Charterstone yet, then surprise, it's a worker placement game.